Dennis is a rock star on Wall Street. He is the founder of NuDay Capital, which is an investment firm that specializes in private placements, IPOs, secondary offerings, and venture capital surrounded in the biotech field. So yeah, we're gonna talk about biotech. We're gonna talk about investment strategies. We're gonna talk about a lot of stuff, and yeah, we're gonna get it going. So I'm excited to have this conversation. Biotech is not something that we've actually spent too much time on, and obviously it's a lot with the biotech space right now with Corona.
It's in the news every day.
All the drugs and all of that. So yeah, first and foremost, Dennis, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
Guys, thank you for having me on. Number one, it's Nas's birthday. You got your 100th episode. There's a lot of pressure being on the show right now.
Yeah, for sure.
It's amazing what you guys are doing. For the minority community, I can speak for the Latin community. You guys are really touching a lot of homes and teaching the market. Ian, you're doing a great job, by the way.
Thank you.
And I think a lot of people need your help. There's nothing out there for our time. CNBC, Fox, this is old news. You know that. You guys are the future. So thank you for your show. And again, thank you for having me on.
Nah, shout out to all of our Latino supporters. You are Puerto Rican and Cuban, right?
Yep. My grandparents came from Puerto Rico, Cuba. I was born in Brooklyn, Staten Island. So I think that makes me New Yorican. That's what I say.
yeah, definitely.
For sure, man. Sure. So, all right, let's get into it. Well, I'll let everybody ask questions, but the first question I had is the biotech space. Can you just talk briefly about, I know you're very bullish on the biotech space. You feel like biotech has a lot of room to grow in the next 10 years. So what should we be looking at in the biotech space as far as like, why are you bullish on it? And what's the deal with everything that's going on as far as coronavirus, drugs, and all that stuff?
So I hear you guys say this on the show a lot, right? One of the key things that I follow when I'm investing is follow the money. Where's the money going? Wherever the money goes, you can find ways to make things happen, right? So in the last couple of months, everyone's heard this coronavirus, the world is racing to find a cure. But we passed something here in the United States called the WARP Act. I said that wrong. Let me take that back. That was when the government passed $10 billion down through the pharmaceuticals, and they started fast tracking all this FDA. You see it every day on the news. All these stocks coming out with cures. We should have a cure. Everyone's reading that. The biotech stocks are exploding. You guys know the names. And here's basically what it comes down to. We're at the top of a funnel. The government just put $10 billion into the system for Operation Warp Speed. The money has not started to flow down yet. That means over the next couple of months, into the next couple of years, you're going to see partnerships, buyouts, acquisitions. We're going to get introduced to new drug delivery methods, digital health, which you're seeing is going to be a tremendous space. And that money hasn't trickled down yet. And I truly believe that over the next 5 to 7 years, a lot of wealth is going to be created in the pharma biotech sector.
So, question?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of pressure to get this cure out as soon as possible. What do you think about the risk and trying to rush this, or are we taking the right approach and should we just wait? Because I know our community is looking at it like, hey, they rush this thing, I ain't taking it. What's your thoughts?
This is personally my opinion, strictly my opinion, not medical advice. But I'm doing biotechs almost 2 decades, right? A couple of presidencies. I've seen my fair share of good and bad. I think that we're not really sure what this virus is. I think that they're fast tracking vaccines at a rate that we've never seen. So, it takes 9 to 10 years from start to finish when you create a drug, right? Mm-hmm. You come up with the idea. There's all these phase 1, phase 2s you hear about. And eventually you get to what they call FDA approval, commercialization. We're just bypassing 10 years of what ifs. So we don't know what the side effects will be. We don't know what the long-term effects will be. We're basically giving away tomorrow for the hopes of saving today. And, on a personal level, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah. Ian, you want
to have a question for you? So we've had a historic run since March. And a couple of weeks ago, I said we have no hedges. Indexes are up. Bond market is up. Biotech is up. Gold is up. With you running a fund, how are you hedging in the market when the traditional portfolio management theory has gone out of the window in the last year and a half?
I feel like it's been longer than that, but good question. Traditional methods have been gone a while. we predominantly, my fund, we predominantly focus on the biotech sector. So we try to find companies that are late stage. These companies in the biotech sector tend to buck the trend of the market because they operate on their own speed. Now, sometimes they're laggers. Well, you'll see companies do tremendous and you're holding a biotech company that's done nothing. But as they get closer to these trials, that's where you see the valuation shift. And that's where all the sexy story and the money comes in. So in terms of hedging against the market, you always want to be hedged. You always want to have conversations about what your downside is. I think the market, you guys talk about options all the time. There are many ways to protect yourself as an investor. And we can get into that later. But in terms of biotech, I think we're in the beginning of a 5 to 7 year bubble. I really think the next 5 to 7 years are going to be tremendous for the whole sector.
So you say a bubble. So that would assume, I would assume that it's going to run up and then it's going to drop.
They're all bubbles. They're all bubbles, right? If you go back to, let's go back to the most recent situation we had anything like this, where the government had to pump a lot of money. And that was a financial crisis of 2009, right? Under the Obama presidency, they passed one of the biggest things we've ever seen called the TARP Act, right? And the TARP Act had many sectors, but one of the biggest sectors you may remember was the entire solar sector. For many years after that money came out the funnel and down to the system, it made room for companies like Solar City. It made room for all these big, and we went into a 5 to 7 year bull rally in the solar sector. So in my personal opinion, I think they always work in bubbles. Things get overinflated. People show up late to the party, it deflates, and that creates this buying and selling wealth and distribution that we see time and time again, dating back to the 80s, like you said, Abe.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm going to go right back to the beginning here. How does one even get to the point where they're actually creating a fund? Like, I mean, obviously you've created one. What's the background? What's the cost associated with such a thing?
I can't get into those questions now. I think you know that.
Okay.
So I'm going to have to decline that one.
All right, no problem.
Let me ask you.
Well, and what do you think about investing in like an ETF like XBI if for a retail investor who wants exposure to biotech, but they're not willing to pour through 50 companies to pick one? What would be an introductory way that you think a person could potentially get into the space?
I think if you take, again, every investor is different. Right? You guys talk about it. So you need to know who you are. Drake says, know yourself. If you're an investor, know who you are. Are you long-term? Are you short-term? Can you sleep at night? Can you bear the risk? Don't lie to yourself. Everybody's got a sexy story. Every stock's great. We all know this. Know yourself. Know how you feel when you put money to work. So if you're a long-term investor, and I hear you guys talk about this all this time, if you're a long-term investor, I'm a big fan of these indexes. I do think that the money is going to hit the system. There are a lot of companies involved, and it actually takes the thinking process out of picking one out of 3,000 biotech stocks that are on the market.
Yeah, we talked about different biotech ETFs in the past, and I think that because I feel like if you just pick, in my own personal opinion, if you pick an individual ETF, individual biotech stocks, you're pretty much just guessing on a winner. Yeah. And it's like, who knows who's going to come out with the drug? Yeah. Who knows if it's going to be an issue?
My graduates from my school being Forbes, bag drop.
Bag drop.
A mic drop, bag drop.
Bag drop.